Nun Aleph Amud Beis. We'll begin at Nun Aleph Amud Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. V'zehu shamrei ha'ani ma'arav beraglov, amar omer anu ein lanu elo ani. So we said over here that the poor person, the ani, can be ma'arav beraglov without using bread, without using paws. So he said, this is what we said, the ani is ma'arav beraglov. Rameir says it's only an ani. And Rabbi Yehuda says, however, it's whether he's an ani or an osher, whether he's rich or poor. Now the Gemara is going to define this machlekes over here. We'll have 2 opinions what this machlekes is, because we're discussing 2 different cases. One is where a person is being ma'arav beraglov in the spot that he's standing without bread, and the other case is when he identifies a particular spot, for instance, the trunk of a tree, and he's not even standing there. So now we have a machlekes whether the make this cool over here is a dafke for an ani, or do we say it's even for an osher? Which case are we talking about? Amar Rav Nachman says machlekes b'mekaymi. The machlekes is when he says in my spot, the place where I'm standing, I want the Erev to be. Now he doesn't have bread, so he doesn't have a suda here, but he's standing in the place. The Rameir Sovar Iker Erev Pas. Rameir holds the Iker Erev has to be done davka with bread, with pas. So therefore over here he doesn't have pas, therefore an osher should not be able to make an Erev this way. Ani hu dakil rabbanan. It's only for a poor person that they were makel. Aval osher loy. But for an osher, they did not allow him to make an Erev without pas. So therefore, in such a case, for an osher, they didn't allow it, and it's not valid. For Rav Yehuda sover, Iker Erev beregel. And Rav Yehuda holds a no. The Iker Erev is beregel. The Iker Erev is the place where the person's standing. That's his mokum. That's his place. So from there, that's where he has Alpaimam. So he holds Iker Erev beregel. So therefore, Echad Ani ve'echad osher. And therefore, he says, even if he's an osher, he's standing in the place, that's the Iker Erev. The Erev is valid. Aval b'makam pleni, if he identifies another place, the Rakol aniyin osher loy. But if it's b'makam pleni, then everyone agrees that it's only an ani and not an osher. If he's not standing in the place, he's just identifying a different place, so he's not even standing on the place, so that's not the Iker Erev. The Iker Erev, and some machlekes of the Iker Erev is with pas, where he places his food, where his food's, that's his makom shvisa. Or is it the place that he's standing, that's the makom shvisa. But if it's neither of them, he's just identifying another place like the trunk of a tree, everyone holds that's not the Iker Erev, and therefore they would say it's only a kula with that we would allow you to use that to say that's an Erev, and therefore it's only for an ani, they were makel for an ani, but not for an osher. V'zu hi sha'omru, and this statement that the Mishnah says, that will be said, that an ani could be ma'arev b'raglov, that he can ma'arev with his feet. Man ketanallah, who's the one that said it? That man ketanallah Rameir. It's Rameir of v'ha'koi ayina makir or sheina baki ba'alocha. And a person who's not makir, does not know a particular landmark, or he's not baki with alocha that he could identify a landmark. So it's davke. It says a poor person, an ani, who's b'ketanillah, that's going into Rameir, because according to Rav Yehuda, an osher would also be able to be ma'ar b'raglov. That statement that the Mishnah says that it only said ma'arvin b'pas only to be makel, it's not a requirement. It's only to be makel that he doesn't have to personally go to the spot that he's making the Erev. Ma'ikatana Rav Yehuda, that's Rav Yehuda. So this is one approach to the machlekes in the Mishnah, that the machlekes is the Iker Erev b'pas or is it b'regel? And therefore the machlekes is where we say that when he is standing in a particular spot, therefore, according to Rav Yehuda, he would say if he's in the spot, it's echad ani ve'echad osher. Rameir says Iker Erev is b'pas, and therefore it has to be. Therefore, we say it has to be in such a case only an ani. Even if he's standing on the spot, it's even in an ani. But if he be identifying a landmark, if he's identifying a land, he's not standing on the spot, so he has neither the bread and he's not standing in this particular spot, everyone would agree, both of them would agree that it is only an ani, not an asher. Rav Chisda, he says machlekes, he's a different version. He says machlekes b'ma complaining. The machlekes is when he's not standing on the spot, he identifies a landmark. The Rav Meir Savar, Rav Meir holds ani in asher loy, it's only an ani, not an asher. Rav Yehuda Savar, echad ani ve'echad asher. And Rav Yehuda says that it's both. But if it's in my spot, then then everyone agreed that they both can do it, the Iker Erev Beregel, because according to this approach, Rav Yehuda says everyone holds the Iker Erev is Beregel. So therefore, the machlekes is only if he is identifying a landmark. If he's identifying a landmark, we say over there that it's a davken ani, that's what Meir said, but a wealthy person has to use food. And Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda says that they both can do it. That he can also make even an osher can make an erev by making a declaration. So that is the way Rav Chisda interprets it. V'zuhi sha'amru, and when the Mishnah said, this is what they said, that an ani could be ma'ar baragla, man katanila, who's a man domer, and that's Rav Meir. It's Rav Meir v'haikoi, and it's going to the following case, hamisha bo b'derech v'chashcha, the person who was traveling, and it became dark, and he identified a landmark, and he says that this should be my erev. Now he says it's dafka an ani, that's Rav Meir. That's dafka Rav Meir, because according to Rav Yehuda, even an osher could be ma'ar. The statement that they said that the requirement for pas is only as a kula, it's only a kula, man ketanala, who's a mandama divrikol. Because according to this approach, everybody holds that the Iker Eruv is bepas. So therefore, that it says that not using bread is a kula, that is according to everybody. There is a machlekes rishonim when we say that an ani and an asher. How do we define an ani and an asher? The mashmalos from Rashi is that we say an ani is a person who's traveling and he doesn't have bread. We consider him to be an ani. So therefore, even if he had bread in his home, or even though he's wealthy, he could be a wealthy person, but in the current state, he is traveling and he has no bread, he's considered to be an ani. And that's how we define an ani in this context. According to the Rashba and the Ritva, they say no, a person is a traveler, he's left his home, even if he has bread with him. But since travelers frequently do not have food, or they could be in a situation where they don't have food, a traveler is considered to be an ani. So according to those Rishonim, if a person is traveling, he would have the kulas of an ani. If a person is at home and now he wants to make an eruv, by identifying a different place or even going out to a different place, but he's not a traveler, that's when we would have this machlekes. Tanya Kavasa Rav Nachman, more brings a raya from the Brisa to Rav Nachman that the machlekes is b'mekaymi, not b'ma complaining. That b'ma complaining, everyone agrees that it's only an ani, not an asher. The machlekes is b'mekaymi if he's standing on the spot, and the machlekes is the Iker Erev, is it b'pas or is it b'regel. Tanya goes to Rav Nachman, echad ani ve'echad asher marim pas. Both of them make an Erev with bread. But a wealthy person cannot go beyond the tchum. On Erev Shabbos, to say my shisa is in my spot where I'm standing. Only for a traveler. They only made this kulov that a person can be ma'arav without bread, only for a traveler, and he's traveling and it became dark. Divrei Meir, that's what Rav Meir said. But Rav Yehuda Omer, echad oni ve'echad asher ma'arav v'regel. Rav Yehuda says they can both be ma'arav v'regel. The Yetze asher chutz l'tchum, and an asher could go outside the tchum on Erev Shabbos and say my shisa should be in my place. V'zuhi ikora shel erev. This is the Iker of the Erev. The Iker of the Erev is on the place that he's standing. V'heitiru chacham balabayes l'shloyach eruva b'yad avda b'yad b'noi b'yad shlucha b'shil ha'kal alav. And they allowed a person to use bread to send a shaliach, son, an eved, a shaliach with bread to be makel so that he doesn't have to go to the spot. But Rav Yehuda holds the Iker Erev is in the place that he's standing. So that's not a kula, that's the Iker Erev. Omar Rav Yehuda says, Mais v'anshe beis mamal v'anshe beis gurin v'aroima. There was a maisa involving these people that took place in the place called Aroima. Shayim Chalkin, Groigers Smukim. They used to give out the Groigers and Smukim, figs and raisins, La'aniyim b'shnei b'tzeres, to the poor people in the times of famine. Uboim ani kfar shichon kfar v'ani kfar Chananya, and the poor people from those villages used to come. They were within 4,000 amas of Aroima, and they used to come. Umachshichon al tchum. They used to be present at where the tchum was, and which would allow them, their tchum would be within 2,000 amas of the Aroima, and then they would come and the next day to collect the raisins and figs that were being distributed to the aniyim. So therefore you see that even though they weren't using pas, they were just present on the spot, they were marav baraglov, then it was a valid erev. Now you might ask, well, these people are poor. They're poor people. So what is the raya from this? But Rashi explains that no, they're not considered to be aniyim because in their house they had bread. They had bread, so they're not considered to be aniyim. They left their houses, even though they're in general terms they're aniyim, but they had bread in their houses, and they left their house to go to the spot to be marav baraglov. So therefore Rav Yehuda brought a raya. Therefore you see that being marav baraglov is echad osher, the echad ani, you can be marav baraglov. That is the ikar erev. Al kolponim, you see a raya from here that we have a raya from Rav Nachman that the machlekes is when we say that the machlekes is the ani and osher, that is b'makaymi. And the machlekes is the ikar erev b'pas or b'regel. Omer Rav Ashi says we can bring a raya from the Mishnah on Daf Nud Beis. We can also bring a raya from the Mishnah the way to support Rav Nachman's interpretation. Masnisa namidika. Why diktani? We learned in the Mishnah Mishi also a person went out in erev Shabbos leilach liir shemar v'la. He went out to another city, into a city where they make an erev. And his friend told him to turn back. He told him it was too hot or too cold. He told him to turn back. Now, he identified a spot that he wanted to make an erev. As the way Rashi explains it, he identified a certain place where he wanted to make an erev. Now, he went out and to identify a spot. He was told to turn back. Hu muter leilech. The next day on Shabbos, he's allowed to go to the other city. B'chol b'nei ha'ir asurim. But the other people cannot go to this other city. Div Rav Yehuda. This is what Rav Yehuda says. Valvinamba, we ask, Maishna ihu, Maishna inhu. What's the difference between him and them? V'omer Rav Huna says, and we're talking in this case, this person has a house in each city. There's two cities. He has a house in each one. There's approximately 4,000 amas between them. Therefore, he left his house in this city to go to the other city. So he was going to leave his house to go to the other city. So therefore, he's considered to be a traveler. He's considered to be an oni. And therefore, he has the ability to make an eruv by making a declaration, by identifying a spot. So Iu came to the Nafkala Urcha V'Leoni. V'Hana Chashim Nina. The other people in the city, they didn't set out to travel. They didn't go out to go to the other city. And therefore, they're not considered a niyim. And they cannot make a declaration. Alma kol b'makam ploni. You see from here that if a person is saying that my erev should be in a particular spot, ani in asher loy, it's only an ani and not an asher shema mino. So you see that Rav Yehuda's shita is that it's only an ani. That's where he's making the erev for a particular spot, not when he's standing on, not b'makaymi, not when he's standing on, when he's identifying a spot, when he says b'makam ploni. So therefore, we see that this supports Rav Nachman's interpretation of the Mishnah. Mosalor of Chia Barashi L'Chia Barav Kami the Rav, he taught it in front of Rav, Echad Oni ve'echad Osher, whether it's a poor person or a rich person, they can make an Erev without putting food down, they can be Ma'arav B'Raglov. Amrle Rav, so Rav said that Siyam Bonami, and you should be Messiah, concluded with this halacha Rav Yehuda, that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda. So this is the Rav Yehuda, the way of Nachman's interpretation. We see from here that whether it's if the person is being Ma'arav B'Raglov, it's Echad Oni ve'echad Osher, whether he's wealthy or poor, you can be Ma'arav B'Raglov, that you can be Ma'arav, you don't need Pas, and it's mutter even without Pas.